Let's learn how to season ground beef properly and give it that flavor customization that you need to have a delicious dinner with your family. Welcome to my kitchen. I am Erin Chase from $5 Dinners, and today we are going to learn the essential hacks and my special ratio for seasoning ground beef. We're also going to learn the timing of the seasoning, as well as go through different flavor combinations that you might consider with the different herbs and spices that are in your pantry to get the perfect dinner cooked for your family. Whether you're just cooking a little bit of meat for your meal tonight or you're doing a bulk browning of ground beef to make freezer meals, I will link that video here as well so you can learn how that works and why it is important to do that, both to save money as well as to save a little bit of sanity. I have a very special ratio that I always use. I've used this for years. It's tried and true. When browning ground beef, I always add minced dried onions and garlic powder. And I'm gonna flip the camera over here to the stovetop and we're gonna get to browning and I'm gonna walk you through that ratio. Here we are at the stovetop and I am going to start browning this. This is a little bit more than a pound of ground beef. This is an 85%. That does matter. We'll get to that in a minute. And I'm just going to use my meat chopper and server to get this broken up. I also love this guy for mixing together like meatballs. And it's also great because it has this little arm right here that after this is cooked, it's easy to scoop and like serve onto a sloppy Joe bun or into taco shells or whatever. Anyways, I have this linked under the video, so to be sure to grab one of these if you do not have one. It's super handy. It's my favorite one. I've tried multiple different meat choppers over the years, and this one is by far my favorite. Okay, about the seasoning ratio. First things first, if you're gonna add salt, you would do that now at the beginning. So we're gonna add salt now. I don't always add salt. We have different levels of saltiness that our family prefers in terms of flavor. So sometimes I just wait for the end of that, but I'm just doing that here for the demo. Next, for each, this is the ratio. For each pound of ground beef, I add 1 tablespoon of minced dried onion. So I'm gonna do, because it's more than a pound, so I'm gonna do 1 and a touch. And 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And this ratio is important to know. It's just, this goes with like 99%, the onion and the garlic. 99% of browned ground beef recipes that you're gonna be cooking, making, this ratio works really well. And also, I share this as a ratio, 1 tablespoon of the onion, 1 teaspoon of the garlic, because, and I do this often, I will often brown 6, 8, 12 pounds of ground beef in 2 giant stock pots. So it matters how much, you don't want to over onionize or over garlic, although maybe there's not such thing as too much garlic, but you get the idea. And then once you've added it in, you just incorporate it. Your house is gonna smell amazing just from the onion and garlic. This is when my kids are like, hey, what's dinner soon? They know, they smell it. They're working on homework or chatting with friends or whatever they're doing in the afternoons. If they're home, oftentimes they're at different practices and whatnot, but they smell the onion and the garlic and they know something's coming, something's ready soon. All right, so we're just gonna let this brown and I will be back in a couple of minutes once it's a little bit more browned. Our ground beef is browned and I turned the heat down so that it wouldn't be so loud and sizzly while I go over a couple of other things that are important to know about the timing of the seasoning. So we added the salt at the beginning. That's optional. It depends on if, like my husband doesn't like salty food, but my youngest and I prefer a little bit of extra salt. So it kind of just depends on your preferences there. The seasoning we're gonna add during the browning. We want those aromatics to be, the heat to bring those flavors up. And this, I'm not planning on draining, but if you were using a fattier cut, a 70% or an 80%, and you end up draining the fat off and you feel like you need to add a little bit more seasoning, you would just add a sprinkle, just a thin coating over the top of the garlic and maybe some of the onion. I would definitely do the garlic because that the smaller garlic could escape with that fat as you drain it off. So just know that you might need to add a touch more after you've drained it if you're using one of those fattier percentages. Last is if you're gonna add any other sauces to your ground beef. This is the point when you would do that. After you have browned the ground beef and drained it, if you're going to drain it, this is when you would add sauces. And of course, sauces and anything else that you're gonna be mixing in with your ground beef, you would do after you have browned and drained it. I also wanted to show you kind of the scooper effect. You can see how that just scoops up so nicely. You can then just like add it to your sloppy joes. And when it's saucier, it scoops even more. And just so you know, I think this is the reason this is my favorite one. Also, less sticks to it. I mean, there's a few things sticking to it, but it's not as bad. Especially if you're browning sausage, this one is definitely the one you're gonna wanna be using. So again, you can find the link to this meat chopper and server under the video. And then next we're gonna go over a couple of different flavor combination ideas for you. Now that we have the basic ratio worked out for seasoning ground beef with the minced dried onions and the garlic powder, I wanted to go over a couple different combinations of different spices that you could add to your ground beef, either as it's browning or when it's finished, to give you that little extra pop of flavor for your meals. We talked about tacos. Of course, you could use taco seasoning, which does have garlic and onion in it, so you would need to add cumin and chili powder. I have that homemade taco seasoning recipe linked for you as well. If you're gonna do anything with a burger twist, so like cheeseburger rice or something like that, you would wanna add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce in with the browned ground beef just to give that little extra pop of burger flavor to your final dish. If you're using ground beef for any sort of a stir fry, of course, there's all kinds of different Asian seasonings you could add: sesame oil, soy sauce, some ginger, maybe a little bit more garlic. So just make the Asian flavor combination that you like. If you're gonna use a pre-made sauce, your favorite Asian pre-made sauce, you would wanna go ahead and add that after it is browned and you have drained it. If you're looking for a little extra heat, you could go with paprika and ground cayenne pepper. If you wanted something a little more on the Italian spectrum, you would go with a thyme, a rosemary, and a basil. If you wanted to add in a little sweet and smoky, you could do a smoked paprika, a Worcestershire, and a little brown sugar. If you really want to get that smoky flavor, of course, you could add a drop of liquid smoke. And if you wanted a little umami booster, you could do soy sauce, fish sauce, and a little beef stock or bouillon base. To recap, I want you to explore with the flavors. Start with the essential basic minced onion and garlic powder, and then go from there using some of the different combinations that I just mentioned. So to recap, we talked about how to add 1 tablespoon of minced onion and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder to every 1 pound of ground beef that you are browning. You can salt at the beginning, add the seasoning while it's browning, add a touch more if you need to after it has drained. Of course, add any of your sauces and wet seasonings after you have browned and drained the ground beef. And again, have fun with the flavors to help you make the tastiest dinners ever. All right, leave me a comment below with which of these flavor combinations you're going to try for your next dinner. Finally, if this was helpful, please give this video a like. Of course, subscribe to the channel. We have more great cooking videos coming out all the time, and ring that bell so you can get notified every time we release a new video. Don't forget the links to the meat chopper and server are down below, as well as the different recipe links that we have over on the blog that I mentioned throughout the video. So be sure to check those out. It's bye for now, and I'll see you soon.